like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of this land, the Eora people, and would like to extend this respect to their elders past and present, and to any Indigenous people here today.
One of the national cross-curriculum perspectives explained by Ruth Reynolds' textbook is intended to ensure that all young Australians have the opportunity to learn about, acknowledge and respect the culture of Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders, because their culture is strongly linked to the sea. The museum also regularly holds exhibitions, and this can take the children on a journey from Tasmania to far north Queensland and the Torres Strait, exploring this deep connection through art and adornments. Also, traditional Aboriginal life differs from modern-day Australia. It is important to show the way that technology has evolved and is impacting modern-day Australia. This museum will show children the different experiences that Aboriginal people had whilst living in Australia, and the children can come back to class and think of ways that life is the same or different for people living in Australia today and thousands of years ago. This helps students acquire empathetic understanding, meaning they can explain why the behaviour and attitudes of people from the past may differ from today. Furthermore, as future educators, we need to show the way that Aboriginal people have made Australia the land it is today. Aboriginals looked after the land, spread plants, hunted for food, cared for the young, and many more things. These very basic but important concepts can be incorporated in a classroom through listening to traditional Aboriginal music, viewing and making Aboriginal art, and these things can be done by children after visiting our site, as it also provides background information about Aboriginal people and their contributions to the land and development of Australia. These activities can also allow students to gain explanation and communication skills, such as using a range of communication forms and developing historical texts. The museum's handmade Aboriginal arts shows the children this key idea, and it also explains to them that many thousands of years ago, the Eora, meaning first people in the language of the Darug, are the traditional owners of the land that the museum now stands on. The discovery of Australia is very important to children for them to be able to link history and geography of Australia to the first landowners, the Aboriginal people. This is seen within the museum through following series of paintings, which, according to Don Mundane, an Aboriginal curator, the paintings represent a social history of place, site, season, being, song, dance, ritual, personal history and ancestral story. As Aboriginals are the original inhabitants of Australia, they had a deep connection with the water, as it helped nurture their land. This strongly relates to the Maritime Museum, as the museum is based around ports and water. As well as this, it's important to teach children the value of basic aspects of life, such as water, and the way that it can help the land and people. This can help students understand geographical aspects of Australia, such as through the weather and land structure that Aboriginals had to endure.
Some of the information presented by the Maritime Museum included the history of Australia. In particular, I focused on the topic New Holland. Indigenous Australians have always been the first people of this land. However, explorers like William Jansoon, Abel Tasman and James Cook are credited with the identification, exploration and colonisation in white history. There have been many landings by explorers on Australia, though it wasn't until the 1640s when Abel Tasman identified and documented a distinct separate fifth continent, Australia. After charting the north and west coastline, he named the continent New Holland, but it wasn't until James Cook in the late 1700s that the complete map of New Holland was charted and renamed as part of the British territory. This topic relates to the Stage 3 history syllabus, the Australian colonies, as a starting point for research. Key inquiry questions that can be focused on include: what do we know about the lives of people in Australia's colonial past, and how do we know? How did an Australian colony develop over time and why? And what were the significant events and who were the significant people that shaped Australian colonies? By exploring these questions, students are given the opportunity to explore the Western identification of New Holland and how it was named Australia. It also opens the exploration of the Indigenous Australians' occupation and how the history of these two cultures has intertwined in Australians' history. Activities that can be explored by teachers could include the student mapping Australia and identifying it by the Western and Indigenous point of view. They could also map their own special place and give it a name, similar to how Tasman named Tasmania Van Diemen's Land in recognition of his Governor-General. Students could also explore the differences in technology in charting and mapping in the 1600s, 1700s and now. For example, Tasman charting his maps compared to Google Maps. The museum can aid with mapping activities and timelines by its presentation of maps and timelines depicting the many voyages of explorers like Tasman and Cook. It also gives relevant and accurate sources and evidence of the discovery of New Holland.
New South Wales History Stage 3 syllabus content strands of the Australian colonies, outcomes M231, M232 and M235 outline that students should learn to describe and explain the significance of people, groups, places, and events to the development of Australia, along with describing and explaining the different experiences of people living in Australia over time. The topic area which I'll be covering is that of voyages. Voyages have played an immense role in Australian history, as this is where the exploration of our land began. Our chosen field site, the New South Wales Maritime Museum, is the ideal place for Stage 3 students to grasp an understanding of the types of voyages that occurred and the type of Navy force Australia had. The museum offers a look into the real world of Australia's past, i.e. the ships that were used for exploration. The Maritime Museum is also a great learning site that links to syllabus content learning areas, such as a student identifies events that have shaped Australia's identity and discuss why they were significant. A student uses a range of sources to investigate the role of a particular man, woman, or group, and the contributions each made to the shaping of the colony. For follow-up lessons about voyages in the classroom, students could conduct a research activity where they create a timeline of Australia's most significant voyages throughout history. For this activity, students could also use the information they gathered from the site. Another in-class activity that students could do that links to the content points within the syllabus would be to form groups of 5 to 6 students and research the profiles of the people, example, Charles Darwin, William Dampier, James Cook, and Abel Tasman, who had significant roles during Australian exploration times and who made contributions to the shaping of the country. This topic area addresses the cross-curriculum priority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, and the general capability of intercultural understanding.
Now let's take a look at 19th century sail ship James Craig. Built in 1874 Sunderland, England, she was used to carry cargo around the world and later operated between Australia and New Zealand. Its significance to Australian colonisation is that it moved produce from emerging colonies and brought manufactured goods to Australian shores. What students could discover and learn are the things non-native to Australia. Students would be surprised to discover that most produce and livestock they enjoy weren't actually originated in Australia. The significance of this specific site is that it explores 3 of the 4 key inquiry questions mentioned in Stage 3, the Australian colonies. Tying the questions to an activity could be implemented as a modern-day journal entry exercise where students are tasked to put themselves in a crewman's position and write about their voyage experience and contribution to Australia's colonisation. The content of their entries would require a collection of additional sources that explain 1. The role that a significant individual or group played in shaping a colony. 2. The impact of a significant development or event on a colony, and 3. The reason people migrated to Australia from Europe and Asia. In addition, students are to include cross-curriculum priorities with story suggestions such as first encounter with Indigenous Australians, Australians associated with China during the gold rush, and their contributions supplying Australia's produce and manufactured goods that helped create a civilization. The activity also covers KLA English, which students achieve outcomes responding and composing, and writing and representing. Students will demonstrate development and application to contextual knowledge, respond to and compose texts, and understand and apply knowledge of language forms and features. Another activity to integrate in the journal entry/blog is by implementing ICT in the form of Instagram. Students are to take photos or videos of the living conditions inside the boat and use a specific hashtag to compile the class's snapshots. Take a look at a hashtag I created earlier, hashtag WSU Maritime, and you'll find videos I took inside the ship like MTV's Cribs.